Everyone. I have 7 o'clock, so I'm going to get started here. My name is Luke Weierbach, and welcome to the 2018 State Basketball Skills Competition Volunteer Webinar. I'm the volunteer coordinator here at Special Olympics Maryland. A little bit of background information. I started in September, so this is going to be my first state basketball tournament, as well as this is my first webinar. So hopefully we can get through, we can get some good information out to you. Help you out before the basketball tournament starts. The purpose of tonight's webinar is to go over important information and give you, the volunteers, a better understanding of what to expect at the event. So one great aspect of webinars is that it allows the listeners to ask questions in real time. So please feel free to ask away. I'll respond to any of the questions at the end of the presentation. I'm not ignoring you. I just may be giving out information at a later time, so you might be asking it and the information might be later in the presentation. So just go ahead, ask away. I'll make time to answer all the questions at the end. So let's get started. Tonight I'll be covering a general overview of the skills competition, including the schedule of events and the facilities. I'll talk about specific skills competitions that are taking place. So kind of what the athletes are expected to do, how to score their attempts, and talk about the roles that the volunteers will be serving in. And to finish it off, we'll be covering responsible behaviors and expectations. So that'll be what you can expect as a volunteer, and then on the flip side, what's expected of you when you're volunteering. Tonight, again, the purpose of tonight's webinar will be to provide important information for volunteers, to highlight key changes from past years, so mainly venues and facilities, and then to gather any questions volunteers may have before the event. So here we go. Welcome to the Special Olympics Maryland State Basketball Skills Competition for 2018. It'll be taking place at Tuscarora High School. So I'm going to give you the schedule of the events on Saturday, April 7th. Volunteer registration will begin at 8:30 and will last, hopefully everyone will get there in about 15 minutes. So 8:30 to 8:45 is going to be when volunteers will be checking in. At approximately 9 a.m., the volunteer training will begin. So here's where you'll receive your specific roles and the training. You'll get a training for how you can fulfill those roles. So you'll get specific information on how to complete your jobs throughout the day. At 9:30, the opening ceremonies will be taking place, with the competition starting directly afterwards, probably about 10 a.m. At 11 a.m., the entire competition will break for lunch. And then at 12:30 is when we are planning for the final rounds to begin. So that's when all the competitions will be starting their final rounds. You'll see athletes kind of getting prepared, getting in that mental state for the championship. And then after that, we'll start awards. And then hopefully, if everything goes according to plan, we should be finishing up around 3 p.m. So that is the schedule of events for Saturday, April 7th. Again, this is at Tuscarora High School. And Tuscarora High School is at 5312 Ballinger Creek Pike in Frederick, Maryland. Now, if you are looking at the school from Ballinger Creek Pike, we are going to be on the left-hand side. So you'll see signs and directional arrows pointing you in the right place. And as you can see, this arrow right here is pointing you to the parking lot that you'll be using. Now, when you park, there's going to be signs coming into the front door. In the main lobby is where we will have volunteer registration, team registration right in this lobby right here. Now, this is where you'll sign in. This is where you'll pick up your t-shirt, get all the get your role and information. And then we will send you into the gyms where you'll be able to see the skill stations set up. You can go through the trainings there, and we'll get you all the information you need. You'll get your trainings in there. Now, right here in the individual skills competition, this is going to be the main gym. This is going to be where level 1 athletes are going to be competing. And right here in red, you're going to have, actually, let's make it blue. You're going to have the, still yellow. All right. You're going to have the auxiliary gym, which is going to be where level 2 athletes are going to be competing. So in this gym right here, the main gym is going to be level 1 athletes. In the auxiliary gym, we'll have level 2 athletes. Again, there's going to be signs here. There's going to be a well-marked arrows and everything that'll get you in the right competition. We'll have everything you need to get to where you need. And if you have any questions, just look for some Special Olympics Maryland staff. We'll certainly get you pointed in the right direction, get you to where you need to be. Uh-oh. I'm sorry, I'm having a little trouble here. Why? There we go. Nope. All right, so now we're going to break down the competition. Our skills competitions are going to be broken down into level 1 stations and level 2 stations. So level 1 athletes are going to be slightly less advanced than level 2, although they'll be competing in very similar stations. Our level 1 athletes are going to be competing in the 10-meter dribble, the spot shot, and the target pass stations, while our level 2 athletes will compete in the 12-meter dribble, perimeter shooting, and catch and pass stations. So as I said, similar stations, but level 2 will just be a little bit more advanced. Now I'm going to break down what these stations are going to have at them, and then kind of what the athletes are expected to do, and then what the volunteers, how they'll be serving at each station. So at the 10-meter dribble for level 1, athletes are going to start right behind this line. When they're indicated, they are going to dribble with one hand across all 10 meters, and they will finish between the cones, and to finish, they must pick up the basketball. Now, if an athlete loses control of the ball and it goes outside of the 1.5-meter lane, the athlete may either recover the errant ball or pick up the nearest ball. And now there are going to be 2 backup balls, one right here and one right here, about halfway down the lane. So if an athlete loses the ball, they can pick up either of those or they can go fetch the errant ball. What's important here is the volunteers. The volunteers will get the extra ball in position for the athlete and retrieve any errant balls that go outside the lanes, but they cannot pass the ball to the athlete. The athlete needs to pick up that extra ball by themselves. So again, the athlete would pick up that ball by themselves. The volunteers here are really getting the errant balls or the extra balls in place in case there is an errant ball. Our second station for level 1 athletes is going to be the spot shot. So athletes will shoot twice from 6 different designated shots. A made shot from spot 1 and 2 is going to be awarded 2 points. A made shot from spots 3 and 4 are going to be awarded 3 points. And a made shot from spots 5 and 6 are going to be awarded 4 points. A shot that does not go through the hoop, so a missed shot, but that might still hit the rim or backboard, are going to be awarded 1 point for the athlete. So again, if the athlete misses the shot but hits the backboard or hits the rim, they're going to be awarded 1 point. Now here the athletes are going to be rebounding the balls, they're going to be feeding the balls to the athletes, as well as making sure that the right athletes are going in the right order. The athletes are taking shots at each spot when they should be. So there's a specific order that the athletes will take the shot. And the officials, the venue leads will go over that at the competition. But it is important that the athletes take a certain route when they're taking the shots, and the volunteers will be helping the athletes get in those positions. Our final station for level 1 athletes is going to be the target pass. Now at the target pass, there's going to be a designated square on the floor that the athlete must be standing in. And they'll be standing about 2.5 meters from the wall. And on the wall, there will also be a designated square. Now, the athlete is going to try to pass the ball and hit that target from inside the square. So if the athlete passes the ball and it hits inside the square, they're going to be awarded 3 points. A pass that hits the lines of the square on the wall will be awarded 2 points. And a pass that hits the wall but not inside the square or not a line on the square is going to be awarded 1 point. Now here's another level to this station, is if the athlete, while standing in the box, catches the rebound, they're going to be awarded an extra point. So if the athlete passes the ball and it comes back to them and they can catch it in the air or after a bounce or more bounces, one or more bounces, if they can catch that ball while still standing in the square on the floor, they're going to get another point. Now, one important thing is it needs to be a chest pass for this. Now, what I mean is if the ball bounces before it hits the wall, then no points are awarded. So it needs to hit the wall on the air. Volunteers here are going to be retrieving balls off the wall. If the athlete doesn't catch it, they'll be returning the balls to the athletes. They'll also be helping the official mark on the wall where the pass hit. So they'll be not making the official ruling, but helping the officials determine where the pass hit the wall. So those are our level 1 stations. On to level 2 stations. This is the 12-meter dribble. So similar to the 10-meter dribble, except there's going to be a couple extra layers to it. The athlete will start behind the cone and will have 60 minutes to travel or 60 seconds, 1 minute to travel the entire length of the 12 meters. Now here there's going to be 5 cones set up along inside the 12 meters, and the athlete needs to weave in and out of those cones. So if the athlete starts going right, they need to go left of the next cone, right of the next cone, and so on. 1 point will be awarded for each cone that the athlete weaves in and out of. So if the athlete goes right, left, and then continues going left, they would only be awarded for those cones that they weaved through, which would be 2. Now, the maximum an athlete can score here is going to be 5 points, so 1 for each cone. And they will again have 60 seconds to go through this course. Again, just like the 10-meter dribble, there's going to be extra balls on the side in case of an athlete loses control of the ball. So again, they can either retrieve the lost ball or pick up the nearest extra ball. Again, this is important. The athlete has to be the one retrieving that extra ball. So if a volunteer passes the ball to the athlete will be disqualified. And again, we want to avoid that. So again, just like the 10-meter dribble, the volunteers will be retrieving and replacing errant balls if they go out of play. They'll be setting them up in designated spots for the athletes in case there is an errant ball. Next up, the second event for the level 2 athletes is going to be the perimeter shooting. Now here, the athlete is going to be starting at the free throw line and lane intersection. So if you're a basketball player, they're going to start at the elbow. Right here in the first diagram, you can see exactly where they're going to start, right there, or on the other side if they choose. Now again, this event is going to last 60 seconds, so 1 minute again. The athlete will, as soon as the time starts, the athlete is going to take shots and get their rebound, dribble back out. They need to take all their shots outside a 2.75 meter arc, and that's going to be signified, marked by a dotted line. So again, the athlete is going to shoot from outside the arc, grab their own rebound, come back out behind the arc, shoot again, and continue as many times as they can within that 60 seconds. So they'll again be getting their own rebounds, dribbling back out beyond the arc. And for each shot that they have made outside the arc, the athlete is going to get 2 points. So volunteers here will be retrieving and replacing the ball if it goes way out of play. The extra ball here is going to be located at the base of the rim, which is right here, as you can see. If the ball hits the rim and goes way out of play, they can always grab that extra ball. That's when the volunteer would run out and get the rebound. Now, here's an important part. They need to replace that ball underneath the hoop again. What we really want to avoid is an athlete basically getting passed to. So we don't want volunteers getting the rebounds and just passing out to the athletes. The athletes need to get their own rebounds here, and they need to dribble back out. So they need to be constantly moving instead of getting passes. And finally, our last station for the level 2 athletes is going to be the catch and pass. Now here, the athlete is going to start in the middle of 2 cones. They're going to pass the ball to the feeder. So the athlete is going to start right here, pass the ball out to the feeder. Then they're going to move in and out, right and left, as many times as they can in 60 seconds. Now, once they move out to beyond the cone, they're going to catch a pass from the feeder and pass it back to the feeder. They're going to move to the other side and same thing, catch the ball from the feeder and pass it back to the feeder. 1 point is awarded for a good catch, while a 1 point is also going to be awarded for a good catchable pass. So for a good catch, they're going to need to catch it right away. They can't fumble it. They can't drop it and quickly grab it. It needs to be a good, clean catch. And then the officials will help determine where or if it is a good catchable pass as well. And again, each round is going to last 60 seconds. Now, volunteers here, we need a volunteer to be the ball feeder, so the one actually passing the ball and catching the ball from the athletes. And again, we are going to need more ball retrievers at this station as well as people to help the officials determine good passes and good catches. And those are our stations for level 1 and level 2 athletes. Now, some sample volunteer roles. So volunteers will be serving as athlete escorts and stagers. So athletes are going to need to be able to get from one station to the next, get from the stations to the award ceremonies. That's where volunteers will step in and they'll be assigned to a certain group, get them from A to B, B to C, and so on and so forth. They'll also be making sure that the right athletes are in the right place. So let's say if athlete Jimmy is up, they'll make sure that Jimmy is the one that's at spot 1 shooting at the correct time. They'll be helping the scorekeepers and everyone, making sure that the right athletes are going when they're supposed to. We will also have scorekeepers and timers. So at the spot shot, we'll need to make sure that the right athletes are getting accurate scores. Timers at the 10 and 12 meter dribble, they'll need to make sure that they're passing in the correct time. They'll all have 60 seconds and completing the station in the correct time. We're also going to have volunteers, as I said, stationed at each level, at each station. So they'll be serving as a ball feeder at the catch and pass. Each station will need certain volunteers. And then we're also going to need volunteers to distribute lunches and awards throughout the day. As I said, there's going to be a whole break for lunch, so we're going to need volunteers out there making sure that all the athletes and coaches and volunteers as well all get their lunches. And then when awards start, we're going to need a whole team of volunteers to make sure that the right athletes are getting the correct awards and that everything is going smoothly at the award ceremony. So now we're going to get into the protective behaviors portion of this presentation. This section is going to cover what is expected of volunteers both at the state basketball tournament and some information that is Special Olympics Maryland general. So at any event, you're going to experience this. It's true for all events. The first thing that I need to mention is that these athletes have coaches from their county and local programs. These coaches have been working with their teams for months or oftentimes years, and these are the only individuals who are to be coaching the athletes during the event. So volunteers, and I'm going to explain this a little bit on the next slide, do not provide any coaching to the athletes. So coaching is specific advice, and that could be words or actions, that would help an athlete gain an advantage over other athletes. So for instance, volunteers shouldn't be telling athletes to put a little more arc under their shot. They shouldn't be running alongside the athlete as they're competing in the 10-meter dribble or 12-meter dribble. This is really the main purpose of this policy, is to provide fair competition to all the athletes and all the competitors. Basically, we're just avoiding specific advice to the athletes. So if an athlete receives advice, there's the possibility of disqualification. Again, we don't want that to happen. Absolutely not. It really is to make sure that the competition's fair. Now, that doesn't mean we don't want you to root for our athletes. It really is just be mindful of when you're cheering or when you're rooting on an athlete, stay away from specific advice. So, you want to encourage them like, hey, way to go, Jimmy, fantastic job, versus, you got to weave in and out, left, right. There's a difference between advice and cheering, and we want to stay on the cheering side. Now, one thing that we do need to watch out with our cheering, unfortunately, is we want to use positive reinforcement, but sometimes an athlete might say they're supposed to weave through the 12-meter dribble, and they just run straight. If we reinforce that, if we're cheering for that, an athlete might assume that that's the correct way of going about it. So by all means, we want to encourage and cheer on our athletes, but certainly make sure that they're completing what they need to be doing. It's if an athlete maybe goes straight through, encourage them, just politely clap, but make sure that you are aware of what you're cheering for. You should never give out any personal information to an athlete. That includes phone numbers, Facebook or Instagram accounts, anything of that sort. And then on the flip side, you shouldn't accept any of that information from the athletes as well. Again, that's personal information. It's private, and we just need to keep it as such. We all love our athletes, but sometimes they might mistake the enthusiasm, the passion of a volunteer with we're best friends forever now. So we want to avoid, we want to keep private information just that. We want to keep it private. So that is your information, and just keep it yours. You as a volunteer should never be one-on-one with an athlete. So that includes taking them to the restroom. That includes helping an athlete maybe change into their uniform or change out of their uniform. That's not your responsibility as a volunteer. We have coaches, family members who are usually at the event, or guardians are usually at the event, so they'll take care of that. That's not your responsibility. Again, you should never be one-on-one alone with an athlete. Just for your safety, for their safety as well. That's not your job to handle that situation. And finally, athletes feed off of the passion and excitement of our volunteers. Out of everyone at the event, really. They might go in for a hug, they might go in for a high five or fist bump, and that's up to you to accept that. If you're comfortable with hugging, by all means, hug the athletes. They love it. Most of them love it. If you're comfortable with a high five or a dap, fist bump, then stick with those. An athlete, I've never heard of an athlete complaining because they only got a high five. But again, that's where you're comfortable at, is where you should stick to. That's your range, and so yeah, it's your personal preference. Now, just like any stranger, just be aware of where your hands are and everything. General would be if a bathing suit covers it, then keep your hands off it. So yeah, just be aware of when you're hugging and if you're willing to hug. And so now we're kind of going to get into the last section, and this is really what to expect at the event. So all volunteers are going to receive a long-sleeved gray t-shirt for the day. And if you're volunteering for both days, please wear that same shirt the next day. Definitely recommend washing it, but definitely you'll need to wear those for both days. You'll also receive a lunch and snacks and water throughout the day. Again, we're going to have specific times blocked out for lunches, so you're going to have that break already built into the schedule. You will have time to eat. You won't be rushed or anything. We'll definitely make sure that you have your time. And then finally, this is a basketball event. There's going to be a lot of moving pieces. Everyone's going to be running around. So you should be wearing closed-toed shoes, but also comfortable shoes. So any kind of sneaker or basketball shoe is what you should be wearing to these events. Again, closed-toed shoes, but make sure that you're comfortable. As for pants or shorts, whatever you're comfortable with, if you're comfortable in jeans or basketball shorts, that's certainly up to you. And then finally, general reminders. You will meet your venue lead in the morning, and this person will be your contact for the day. So they'll be the ones facilitating your training for the day. So once you receive your roles, you'll get that specific information regarding your training. If you have any questions, again, they're your point of contact, so ask away. If you're not sure of anything, go ahead and ask. We want our volunteers to feel comfortable in their roles. So if you're feeling a little bit uncomfortable, or if you have a question about anything, get that clarification. They're happy to help. We are running this event together, so we want everyone to be on the same page. And then at Special Olympics Maryland, we hold the integrity of the sport in high regard. So we have officials, we have coaches. You might maybe help an official determine a call, but unless you're instructed to do so, that is up to the official. And then there's a whole process for coaches going through and asking for rules clarifications or clarifications on scores. So they'll handle all that. Again, if you're asked, by all means, give your opinion or give your side of the story. But that is the judgment call is up to the officials. They'll take care of all they need to. So were there any questions? I don't see any. So I see one. Does it matter if they use one or two hands to dribble for the 12-meter dribble? I believe it's one hand, but they will go through. The venue lead will go through that. They'll have that answer, but I believe it is one hand for that. And can I choose the station where I want to work? You can have a preference, but sometimes we need people to fill in at certain stations. So you can have a preference, but we might need you to work at the 10-meter dribble. So unfortunately, we can't accommodate all preferences. We try to as much as we can, but unfortunately, sometimes people have to work at stations where it might be their second or third choice. So yes, that is one hand only for the 12-meter, and we take into account preferences for station, but sometimes we don't. We can't fulfill everyone's wishes. That is all the questions I see. If you have any more questions, if any other questions come up in the time before the event, please feel free, direct them to my personal email, lweirbach@somd.org, or it's a tough last name to spell, I understand, volunteers@somd.org. I can answer questions there as well. So if you have, again, any questions before the event, please feel free to email one of these two email addresses. I will get the answers out to you as quickly as I can, definitely before the event. Thank you very much for attending, everyone. We really appreciate it. We're looking forward to a fantastic skills competition again this year. I'm personally looking forward to it again because it's going to be my first one. But yeah, it's going to be exciting. Thank you for joining us. Have a good night, everyone. We'll see you on the 7th.